Welcome into Brainstorming America. Appreciate you tuning in this week. Appreciate you tuning in every week. I'm here with my co-host, John Merrill. Good to see you, John.
Hey, Ken. Great to be with you again, brother.
Been on the road today?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, I ain't never seen you when you wasn't. They ought to write a song called On the Road Again.
No doubt.
That's a good title for a song.
I like that.
I guess they go like, On the Road Again. Okay, back to the Brainstorming America. John, there's something that's heavy on my heart that I want to start with today. Everybody in America is watching what's happening with the removal of our Speaker, Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy was removed from office. As we're doing the show today, it was yesterday. He was removed from office the first time in over 100 years something like this ever happened. And what do we do? What does that do to the people that's watching out here in White Plains and Piedmont and Gadsden and all over? What does that do to them? It does a lot of things for his votes to do with the border and things like that. But to me, as a military person, it has me worried about what could happen nationally and what could happen overseas with just that removal of that Speaker, because he is third in line to be the President of the United States.
Absolutely.
He or she. And so that bothers me, that if Xi of China wanted to move on Taiwan at a time when we don't have a Speaker, if somebody in Russia wants to do something stupid when we don't have a Speaker, we can't make decisions for his munitions and personnel without a Speaker of the House.
That's right. Or even declaring and going to war. And I tell you, it's really an unbelievable time in the history of the Republic. Of course, this is unprecedented in the history of the United States of America, where the body has voted to void the speakership of the individual who's been charged by that body to lead that body for a specific period of time. Very, very disturbing. I've had the privilege on several occasions to visit with, talk to, interact with Speaker McCarthy. I found him to be a person of character and integrity, a great leader of men and women. He put together a coalition that took him 15 ballots to gain election to the House, which was also unprecedented. But I do think he made a strategic political error that resulted in his ouster, and that's when he allowed the body to have one member speak negatively on his behalf and challenge his speakership, and then they would have to have a vote. That's not something that was in the rules. It's something that they adopted as a part of the rules, similar to what you see in Great Britain or what you see in Israel, which is why you see them change their elected officials in leadership in the Knesset and also in the House of Parliament in Europe with frequency. That's a problem. It's a major problem for the United States, not just for the reasons that Ken introduced a few moments ago, but also for continuity and for the defense of our country. And so it's something that we have got to give a great deal of thought to, is do we want to continue to send people to Washington who are motivated by political posturing, motivated by unbelievable, irreconcilable philosophies of leadership, or do we want to send people to Washington who are going to do what's in the best interest of the United States of America? It's a strange time in the Republic.
You just hit the nail on the head. What is the best interest of America? And where we got here to where we were is Speaker McCarthy allowed some votes to go forward on some the bills that had to do with funding and whatever. And he used some Democrat votes to do that.
Of course he did, because he had to.
He didn't have the votes. So the little bucking guy that Matt Gaetz is his name. He's learned, he's getting shaved now. He's old enough to shave. And he's the one that threw a wrench into all the gears. Now, he's a friend of ours, and that's Donald Trump. But that don't make it with me. He did something to America alone. This guy was allowed to get into the toy room and get all the toys, and he threw threw them all into gears where it couldn't work. And
The most interesting thing about the whole conversation, Ken, is the part where he was so enamored with Speaker McCarthy actually interacting with the Democrats to come up with a resolution for the continuation of the joint resolution for the budgeting process and appropriations distribution, and just railed on him. And yet he's the one that led 7 other Republicans to join all 208 Democrats that voted to oust McCarthy as the Speaker. Speaker Gingrich said last night on television that he felt as though he needed to be removed from the House Republican caucus because 4% of the membership of the Republicans in the U.S. Congress actually determine who the Speaker will be or will not be. That's what it's come to.
See, the vote was like 7 or 8 votes. This guy got 7 or 8 votes out of 240 something. That's ridiculous. In any scenario, to be able to change the direction of a country, to go into the tube or not, whatever. And I can just, with the Democrats just sitting over just loving it because they're watching the other body, but they don't realize that's their body too. It's the whole country is in a quandary right now, and I just scared to death with it. That's the reason I wanted to lead with that today because
Yes,
this
sir.
is something that I know there's a lot of people out there that just parked the tractor or the pickup and they're saying, what the heck is happening? And what's that do to affect me? Well, it affects you to everything you're going to do. Food you're going to eat, the gas is going to go to your vehicle. Everything you're going to do in your life is going to be affected by what happened yesterday in the House of
Yes,
Representatives.
sir. And because of that, we know you're not interested in posturing, but you are interested in what's going on in Brainstorming America. We'll talk more about it when we see you again right after the break.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here, trying to figure out who I am, where I am. And I'm here with John Merrill. And with John, we was talking about the upset of the speakership. So I'm going to go off of that and let's go on some other things that's in the news, and let's talk about that. The folks in our viewing area we can break it down to where they can understand it better. That AI, artificial intelligence, is creeping into our military now. Well, it's into everything, and how does that affect the lady in White Plains, Piedmont, Gadsden, a different place, in Huntsville, and how it affects these people that are our viewers? It's going to be in everything. It's going to be in our food service. It's going to be in. They can make a person look like a real person serving you food and talking to you, having a conversation with you, and it not even be a real person.
Yeah, with a hologram. And it's so interesting, Ken. I just saw this week a story where Tom Hanks had his image taken by someone to endorse a particular product, and they are actually using words that he has spoken, and they're using images of him to promote this particular product, which he has not personally endorsed, has absolutely nothing to do with. And like you said earlier, it makes it difficult to police that activity and to determine what's real and what's not and how to deal with it, because you don't know when it's going on or who's initiating it.
If you see me and John's image out there, y'all make sure you stick us with a pin or something. Make sure it says don't fall for that, because I know they're going to be using us. We're so popular, but it is a serious thing when we've always been worried about our kids on a computer and the Russians tapping into it and getting your credit card information. But folks, if they can make an image of you just by taking a picture of you standing on the street, putting a voice to that image of you that they took on the street, and have you walk into a bank and withdraw some money, and the banker recognizes you because it's a picture of you walking. It's a picture of you talking. It's a picture of you doing everything you would do if you went in the bank to withdraw some money. So you might want to figure out, you and the banker, figure out some kind of code. This is really me. and the AI people won't know what it is. But it's really, I'm probably, I don't know, overreacting to it, but I think it's one of the things of today that we have to really be careful
On
with.
guard about, no doubt, no doubt.
And
Ken, thanks for introducing it to the listeners.
Can you imagine in schools,
Yes,
our
sir.
children being taught from an AI device as opposed to a person giving points of view and opinions to the children based on something out of Taiwan?
Right. And, you know, not even to mention some of the things that we've talked about previously on the show related to the creation of artificial intelligence reports, where someone has actually commanded a particular AI instrument to write a report on their behalf, to do a book report, to do a case study in litigation, to cite particular cases that have occurred related to that subject matter. Of course, the instances where this has occurred before, where there have been some major problems, or where certain cases were properly cited, but those cases did not actually exist. And when that happens, you've got a major problem. You've got a major problem for that attorney. You've got a major problem for the defendant or for the person that's advocating on behalf of the plaintiff. And at that point, some people are going to even potentially face disbarment. But it is a situation we have to keep close eye on.
That sounds like something Joe Biden did, you know, plagiarism and stuff that he's been involved in, where he'd take speeches from some general somewhere and put it on to his, some other politician, and put it down as his. And so in this situation, it could be somebody that's absolutely taking somebody's real speech,
Sure.
duplicating it,
Sure.
but it looks like it's coming out of your mouth.
Of course, President Biden most famously did that with Neil Kinnock when he was running for president in 1988 and thought that he could tell Neil Kinnock's story, who was a member of parliament in Great Britain, and make it his own story, and resulting in people embracing him as a rags to riches Horatio Alger story. And at that point, people would anoint him to be the Democratic nominee in 1988. Of course, that didn't work out for him. He had to withdraw from that particular race at that particular time. That was the time that I first met Joe Biden, which was in May of 1987 when he came to the University of Alabama to speak on Law Day. But he's had a storied career.
Storied career. I can't believe that. And 87, I
Yes, sir.
can't even remember back then. I mean, I was just a baby.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
But you were a big one.
Thank you. I'm artificial intelligence. I'm not real. You rascal. You'd give him an opening, boy, he'd go for it, I'll tell you. I wanted to talk a lot about this next story, but I only got about a minute, but I do want to get into it. And the fentanyl thing, since we last met here, we get 60, 70,000 deaths. Just think about that. We only had 58,000 in the Vietnam War, the whole Vietnam War, 10 years of war, 58,000. Now we got 70,000 in
Ken,
1 week.
I saw something the other day on TV that had fentanyl deaths that have been documented by the Drug Enforcement Administration, where there are tiles of these individuals. There's pictures of them on tiles that are placed all through the DEA headquarters, and that reminds them of how many people have been negatively impacted by fentanyl and by the things that are currently ongoing. We want to talk more about this and talk more about other issues that are important to you when we return for our final segment of this week's episode of Brainstorming America.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America, here with John Merrill. And John, when we left, we were talking about fentanyl deaths, and we can't just walk away from something like that to go into more. The folks that's out here watching us, other than paying attention to what your kids are taking at school and other places away with their friends, if they take in a Percocet, that Percocet may be the killer. So you're going to have to train those kids that they don't take nothing. They don't take a Percocet from Aunt Jane. They don't take a pill from Uncle Joe. They don't ever take a pill from someone, because that's the same thing as a bullet to the head. The pills I saw, some of them are like candy, the different colors, flavors, for different flavors and stuff. So how do we stop this from getting into our, one of the things at the border, they got to close that border. I do not understand. You were a Secretary of State. You were responsible for a lot of things in the state of Alabama. But the public trust was one of the things you was responsible for. But one of the things that this president, any president, is the people's safety. When you don't care enough about the safety of your people, what have you got? I mean, this man has allowed thousands and thousands, like I told you, more in 1 week than we lost in 10 years in Vietnam. I'm serious. At
Yes,
58,179
Yes, sir.
is what you'll see on the wall in Washington. 70,000, 20,000 more in 1 week coming across that border. And they come in and things like that. You parents out there are going to have to watch what your kids are doing and how they're getting it to them.
Unfortunately, Ken, one of the things that happens when you have an epidemic like we're experiencing with the fentanyl crisis now is that many people don't actually pay attention to it until it impacts them personally. Whenever that happens, it's too late because the tragedy has struck your family. So what we want to encourage you to do is to make sure that anytime you have the opportunity to introduce this to your member of Congress, whether it be Congressman Rogers or another member of the Alabama delegation, or one of our 2 United States senators, Senator Tommy Tuberville or Senator Katie Britt, we want to make sure you continuously remind them, either through an in-person conversation or through an email that you may send to their office, or a letter that you write to their office, or a phone call that you make to their offices, to tell them how important it is to you to make sure our borders are protected and that these illegal and illicit substances are denied entrance to the United States, which puts all of us at risk.
Which brings me to something. You mentioned Katie Britt. I don't know her. I never met her. I know you know her personally, but I've watched her, and she's talking about this very subject. And she, of course, she saw that old Mama Bear stuff coming out of her.
Right.
She was so fired up. She was stepped away from the Blackburn lady from Tennessee and several others. Blase, we got to do, we have to do. And she stepped up there and she went from.
She started lighting them up, my brother.
She from zero to hero. And I'm sitting there, oh no, let me hear this thing, let me hear this one. She told them what she thought about the president that was allowing these deaths to occur under his watch. How sorry that was to allow that. And all the others, and the person in charge of Homeland Security that allows, how do you think these people sleep at night, John? I mean, any moral person, any person who's got any kind of morals, to know that I've seen generals cry from losing one soldier in a battle. How can you have a person in charge of millions and millions of people watch millions and millions of people die because of your lack of action?
Well, part of the problem that we have, Ken, is that many of the people that we're talking about that are in leadership, from President Biden on down, have been in Washington for so long they become institutionalized. And the thing that you just described about Senator Britt and the comments that she made last week related to the situation on the border and the things that were horrendous that she personally witnessed shows that she still has that personal touch with our people and with the people whose lives were being negatively impacted because of what was going on at the border with the border crisis. And she let that out, and people could see that, and they knew that it was real. And so I immediately picked up my phone and called her and thanked her for sharing her story, for all of us to be able to see that, because we need to know that our elected officials are still in touch with the things that are happening in the United States, especially those that are in a position to do something about it, which she is one of those individuals now. But to remind those others that were there making those statements, and to remind the president that people are watching and holding them accountable, is the most important thing.
Why shouldn't I have thought about, I picked up the phone and called her. I'm just telling you, I watched her, and I was moved by it. But no, he actually called her up and talked to her about it. That I would have loved to have done because she moved me. But would you pass it on to her that?
Oh, certainly I will.
This country boy
yes,
down
sir. And it meant a lot to her because I told her, I was not just speaking for John Merrill, not just speaking for Cindy Merrill. I was speaking for our friends and our family and people just like you, all of our viewers, people that know what is going on and people that want to make a difference.
Well, that's why we're doing this, is because what we can take collectively, the things that we know from our people that's going on in America, and put it in a bundle and give it to the people weekly, whatever. Our opinion of what's going on, because sometimes they'll just say this happened and this happened, but they don't tell what effect it might have on you. And I know you folks appreciate giving you a perspective of how this bill that was passed, or how this, like we were talking about, how the fentanyl problem could affect you, even though you don't have children. It could still affect you. Your husband or your friend or your niece or your nephew could be one of those people that, oh my God, I wish I'd have told my sister. I wish I'd have told. You have the obligation to what we're talking about, to spread the word about it. Tell people, don't take medication that's not issued by your doctor. And if you've got any kids that go to school, I had that problem with my daughter. Was some of her friends would give her, but we didn't have fentanyl one when she was growing up. God forbid, she'd probably be dead now, because her friends would bring her not just Percocet, but Oxycontin and things like that. Yeah, I mean that was a big thing in high school. Is somebody had something for something, everybody had it.
And speaking of your meds, we don't want you to take your meds before the next episode of Brainstorming America, because we want you to make sure you're paying full attention to the things that we're introducing to you each and every week. Thank you for joining us. It means a lot to us to know that you are interacting with us and that you're listening to our stories. We look forward to visiting with you again next week on Brainstorming America.